Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. From the title of today's video, you already know what we're getting into. I can't believe it's already March. So we have a little bit of a wrap up. I missed January's wrap up too, so I decided to just throw them in here because there wasn't very many books that I read in January anyway, so I thought we could just tack them on at the beginning and then go straight into February. February was a great reading month for me. So yeah, let's just go ahead and get right into it. So I'm gonna start in order. So we're gonna start with January, and my first book that I finished in January was Not Another Love Song by Julie Soto. In this book, we follow two musicians in the Pops Orchestra. One is a cellist and one is a violinist, and they're kind of competing for the main stage, first chair, that kind of stuff. And we kind of just see their relationship grow from there. At the beginning of the book, they kind of run into each other, and Gwen, our main character, is kind of like, oh, like I work with this guy's off limits. When I first started this book, I thought that I was going to put it down and DNF it. I thought that I wasn't going to like it, but about halfway through, at first it really dragged. It took me a long time to read it, but about at the halfway mark, it really started to pick up and the story got interesting for me. So that is why I gave it 3.5 stars, because at the end it was really worth it, but the trek to get there was not. So I don't know. I know she has like kind of like an interconnected standalone book called Forget Me Not that goes with this book, and I don't know if I'm gonna read it because I know people like both, and for me it just fell kind of flat. It was just okay. Next, I read / listened to Friends, Lovers, and the Big Terrible Thing by Matthew Perry. I didn't end up rating this one. I am not someone who doesn't rate memoirs, but for this one, it felt kind of weird to rate it, especially in like the first page. He talks about how he should be dead, and hearing that from his own mouth was kind of weird. But obviously this book is about Matthew Perry's life, his struggle with addiction, and him coming out on the other side of that. I will say this book is very repetitive. He kind of talks about the same things over and over again, which is to be expected, as he, you know, fell into his addiction multiple times. But it was to the point where I was getting kind of confused, especially with the layout of this book. It kept jumping from like past to present, and so I just kept getting a little bit confused. But overall, I think it's a great read. I'm glad I read it, or I listened to it from his voice, and it was definitely very like weird to listen to it after what happened. So yeah, didn't rate this one, but I definitely think everyone should read it, especially if you love Friends. And then it's pretty apparent that in January I was on a memoir kick because I read The House of My Mother by Sherry Frankie. This book is about a girl's journey with her mother, who a lot of people know as like the 7 Passengers. It was this like mommy YouTuber blog kind of thing, and Sherry is just writing about her experience with that and her mother, and just kind of like the things that we didn't get to see on YouTube. Growing up, I didn't really, like, I wouldn't call myself a follower of the 7 Passengers. I knew of them. I watched a lot of other family vlogs and stuff. So like, if you were on YouTube during that era, you probably knew of the 7 Passengers. They were really, really big. So just getting to know what was happening behind closed doors in real time while we were watching this, you know, seemingly perfect family was was a very cool but like insane experience to me. This memoir was beautifully written. I genuinely think that Sherry Frankie has a gift for writing. Like, actually, I thought that some of the sentences that she was putting together were just like really good. Like, I don't know, like I feel like I normally read memoirs and they're kind of just memoirs, but this one was very beautifully written. I have no notes for it. I did end up giving it a 4.5 stars just because, I don't know, it wasn't a 5-star for me, but I did really, really enjoy it. And I also listened to this one in the voice of Sherry Frankie, and so that was also very interesting to see. The story is very heartbreaking and was just very like kind of, I guess, cool. I don't know if that's like the right word to say, but to like follow along and like go back and watch these videos that are everywhere and be kind of like seeing the signs now that you're seeing it from Sherry's point of view. It is just really sad, and I'm so glad that she got her story out there because I think it is very needed and it was beautiful. The next book I started in January but finished in February, and that is Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros. I have never gotten around to this book after finishing Fourth Wing. I really loved Fourth Wing, and then this came out a couple months later and I just never got around to it. It's literally just been sitting right there. So with all the hype around Onyx Storm coming out, I had to read it. It took me a little while. As you can tell, I did not finish by the release date of Onyx Storm, but that's okay. For a background on this, I'm not gonna go too deep into it just in case you haven't read Iron Flame, because it's basically just one big spoiler if I do, but we're just following more of Violet and her journey at the war college that she's at. That's about all I'm gonna give you guys. But yeah, this is how much of the following of the war college that we're doing in this book, and for me it fell very, very, very flat. I ended up giving this one 3 stars, which is crazy because I'm pretty sure I gave Fourth Wing 5 stars. This is one of my favorites of whatever year I read it, 2023 or something like that. In my opinion, it was just completely redundant, and I know that this series, the Empyrean series, Rebecca Yarros has said that it's supposed to be kind of like a starter fantasy series for people who kind of think like fantasy and world building is kind of daunting. So there's not much like world building in this, which I think made the book worse in my opinion, because things kept happening, like high stakes were happening, but I couldn't vision it in my head. Which is weird because you would think with all these pages that there would be a little bit better descriptions in this, but every single time like the high stakes thriller point was happening, I just literally could not even picture it. It just felt like I was just reading, like I wasn't like, it was just going in one ear and out the other. A lot of times also they would like mention like a term about like Venin or something like that, and then just completely drop it. They wouldn't go into what that term meant or stuff like that. Like they would bring it up again, but we still didn't really know what it meant. We were just kind of like, here you go. And so this whole book was just very, very confusing to me. It felt very long and repetitive, and just there was a lot of high stakes, but it wasn't fun because I had no idea what was going on. Next, after reading Iron Flame, I needed a break from fantasy because there's no way I was gonna be able to pick up Onyx Storm after that right away. So I went into Out on a Limb by Hannah Bodum Young. I've heard of this author and her books for a long time, but it wasn't until I watched the I'll Read What She's Reading podcast, and they had the author on and they were talking about her books and stuff, that I literally was dying to read it. I'm pretty sure the next day I went to Barnes & Noble and bought it because I was hooked. I loved the way that the author was speaking of the book, and I'm so glad that I did. In this book, we follow Win, who ends up having a one-night stand with Bo, who she meets at a Halloween party. They kind of bond over both of their like disabilities. Win has a like hand disability, which the author actually has, and then Bo is missing a leg after getting cancer, and so they kind of bond over that. They have a one-night stand. Nothing really comes of it until Win finds out that she is pregnant, and then from there we just kind of follow their journey with the unexpected pregnancy, their romance, their relationship, and co-parenting and all that good stuff. I will say, if you do not like accidental pregnancy, please just give this one a shot, because this one has definitely changed my mind with accidental pregnancy forever. I normally don't like pregnancies period in a book, especially if they're at the end and stuff like that. But this one really changed my mind. Everything about this book was so well done. I literally was giggling. I was literally giggling first chapter in. When they meet up at the Halloween party, I was dying because it was so cute, so perfect. I'm very excited to get into the next one, because in the next one we see, they're kind of like interconnected standalones, and we see her friend's romance with her like high school sweetheart, and so I'm very excited for it. But for this one I ended up giving it a 4.5, which I don't know why I didn't give it a 5 stars. I think I was just really tired of him calling her honey. Like he probably calls her honey like 200 times, and for some reason that was just kind of giving me the ick, which kind of made me teeter on 4.5, 5 stars, because this book is genuinely so refreshing. Like, just the representation of the two characters in it is so, like, no one does that, and co-parenting and doing it well and communication, like, it was just so beautifully written, and I'm so glad I discovered this author because I love the way she writes. It was so fast. I read it super quick. But it also had depth. So like it was quick, but it also like was emotional, and I loved it so much. And then that leads me to Onyx Storm by Rebecca Yarros. I had to go ahead and get into this book with all the hype, or I was not gonna get into it. So I did go ahead and get into this. I'm pretty sure I ended up listening to it because about a chapter or two in, I was like, I can't do this. Like after Iron Flame, I was burnt out, and I was like, there's no way I can do this. So I ended up listening to it, and it was okay. Again, I'm not gonna go much into the summary of this, especially if you haven't read Fourth Wing, because that might be really crazy and definitely borderline spoilers. So just know we're still following Violet in this one, and her dragons and her signets and stuff like that. I did end up liking this one more than Iron Flame a little bit. I don't know if it's because I was listening to it, which saved it for me. I did give it 3.5 stars, but even that is being a little bit generous in my opinion, because again, like the lack of world building was really confusing me. A lot of stuff was going on, but it was better in a sense because we were, you know, getting more into like the deep stuff that I want to like know about that we weren't knowing about in Iron Flame. I will say that the like miscommunication trope between her and Xaden in this, it does not end. It does not end in Iron Flame, which I know everyone thought it was going to, but it does not. And if anything, it gets worse. I was really bored of it. I literally told my coworker who is into this series as well that I kind of wish Xaden would die. Because I'm over him. Like, I'm so tired of it. And so, yeah, I wasn't loving the relationship, which is like, it's a romantasy. Like, you're supposed to really root for them, but I wasn't rooting for them. And it's long, again, no world building, which I feel like I need, especially if a book is gonna be this long. I feel like you could definitely do a little bit more with the world building. It was just a lot. Like, it was definitely better, but still, I don't know. I am gonna probably end up finishing the whole series as they come out. I love being a part of like the hype of the series because I think it's really fun and I've never experienced that before, but it's just not my favorite. They keep falling flat, and I love Fourth Wing so much. Like there's so much, what's the word? Promise. There's so much promise with Fourth Wing, but like, I don't know. And I'm excited that she's kind of slowing down with the releases for the series because I feel like she kind of needs to get it together because it was just eh. Next, I have First Time Caller by B.K. Borison. I had to get my hands on this for Valentine's Day because of the cover, because of the whole aspect of it. I just recently read a B.K. Borison book for the first time and I adored it, so I was very excited about this one. In this one, we follow Aidan Valentine, who is a radio show host for a like love connections spot on the radio. Basically, he's just like, people call in and he gives them like romance advice and stuff like that, but deep down he is a romantic cynic. He does not believe in romance, but he is on air giving people all this advice. The show is kind of slowly dying until one day Lucy Stones, who is our female main character's daughter, calls into the hotline and is trying to get advice for her mom, who has not been on a date forever. She finds out that she's on the phone late at night. She wonders what's going on. She starts talking to Aidan Valentine on air, and the clip goes viral. People really want more. They want more Lucy. Obviously, she's a hopeless romantic, so they want more of her advice and what she's doing to get out there. So they end up inviting her to the show to kind of co-host with Aidan Valentine and try and help her find her happily ever after. In my opinion, this book really lived up to the hype for me. I really loved it. I will say it was a bit slow at first, but after the couple of chapters, I really got into it. At the beginning of each chapter as well, it kind of gives you like a little on-air like quote that they talked about on air. It is dual point of view, which I love in a book. Aidan's point of views in these books were so perfect. They were so good. I ended up giving this one a 4-star. I'm not really sure why it wasn't a 5-star for me. I just didn't get that feeling. But I loved it and I definitely recommend it, especially for like love time, springtime. It was just so perfect. Aiden was just like a great friend for her as well as partner for her, I feel like. And so I just really loved it. I love V.K. Borison's writing. It was super fast paced, but also had a little bit of depth into it. So yeah. Lastly, to wrap up what I read in February, I read Before I Let Go by Kennedy Ryan. In this book, we follow a recently married, now divorced couple, Yasmin and Josiah, as they navigate co-parenting as well as owning a very famous restaurant together. Their relationship kind of fell apart as a few really life-altering moments and happened to them. Yasmin kind of falls into a depression and eventually the two decide that it would be best for them to split up. But at the start of the book, we're kind of seeing them successfully co-parent and manage a business together, and somehow they're just always together. There's still kind of like this pull, and they're just kind of confused because obviously they're divorced and they thought that that was the right thing, but there's still like this romantic pull for them. I really loved how this book touched on such deep topics. Obviously we have divorce and successfully co-parenting. Kennedy Ryan talks about going to therapy and how successful that can be for some people. It talks about depression and some other things that I don't want to get into because they might be spoilers, but there are some very deep subjects in this, and I think the way Kennedy writes them was so well done, especially feeling grief in a relationship and having two different ways of dealing with grief. Which can be really, really hard. Obviously for Yasmin and Josiah, it was their break point in their marriage. Overall, I gave this book 4 stars. I really loved how Kennedy Ryan touched on deeper subjects in a romance instead of just like your everyday meet cute. Only reason I don't think that I rated this one higher is because I feel like their rekindling was a little bit more leaning towards the attraction side than it was like the navigating grief side, which is kind of like the whole point of the book. But I feel like the attraction side was like a little bit too much, and so I felt like it was a little bit kind of face value or something like that. But overall, it was so beautiful, beautifully written. I'm definitely going to be reading the other books. The friends in this book, Yasmin's friends in this book, we are getting books on them. I'm pretty sure the next one comes out this year. So I'm very, very excited to read them. I thought it was beautifully written, also dual POV, and just beautifully written. I loved it. And I'm definitely going to be getting into Kennedy Ryan now because I love when a romance isn't necessarily a meet cute and we get to see different sides of things, because like it's great, like seeing a meet cute is great, but that's just like not how life is. And so reading a romance about like real life and real struggles is so refreshing. Alrighty guys, that was my January and February wrap up. Like I said, I feel like I had a very successful start to the year, especially February. I read a lot of books. I had a lot of 4.5 stars. Not a 5-star yet. I haven't found a 5-star yet, and I'm like really searching for one because I feel like at this point I should have a 5-star, which I know is like setting myself up for failure, but I need a 5-star. So comment down below if y'all have read any 5 stars in the beginning of this year, because I need to know, because I'm struggling out here. So let me know if any of these books are going to be on your TBR now, or what you thought of them. I know we have a lot of anticipated releases in this stack, so if you also read them as they came out, let me know what you thought. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.